Hey, all you beautiful people out there. Thank you for joining me on a Perch of Birds podcast, episode number 24, coming to you on location at 510 Galisteo Street in downtown Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're at the break room with Santa Fe Brewing Company President, Mr. Brian Locke, and Brewmaster, Mr. Bert Boyce. These guys are on top of their game and on top of the brewery game in New Mexico, and they're poised to pivot and probably take on the majority of the country and introduce them into how we do it down here in New Mexico when it comes to that good craft brew. We go over the variances that go into creating these beautiful, unique beers, as I call it, going from 0 to 1. Actually, I stole that from a book. Very good book. We talk about that in the podcast, as well as what gives you a hangover. What's that chemical that's in those certain beers that seem to just always do you dirty? Rolling Rock is the one for me. Love you, Rolling Rock, but I just can't drink you. And, of course, we look into the origins and the future that comes with Santa Fe Brewing Company. These guys were so cool to hang out with. I literally got to sit down and just try beer with these super laid-back dudes. If you guys get a chance, please check them out at santafebrewing.com. You can also check out all of the shows that they have going on at their various venues that are all over the state, mostly Albuquerque and Santa Fe, but I do know that they do some festivals and stuff like that. So we're going to post everything that they have coming up in the future, and I want you guys to download the episode and leave us a review on iTunes if you guys dig it. Thank you so much for all your support. So we are here, Perch of Birds podcast, number 20-something. I'm here with Mr. Brian
Locke.
Locke, CEO of Santa Fe Brewery. And then we also have Mr. Bert Boyce, and you are the brewmaster for Santa Fe Brewery.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, and then what are you guys, what are we doing here? Where are we at? Can you guys tell me a little bit about where I'm at, where I'm doing this cast from?
Sure. This is our newest, greatest tap room called the Break Room. So 510 Galisteo Street, downtown Santa Fe, 5-7 minute walk from the plaza.
Absolutely walk. The traffic sucks a little bit right now. That's just today, though.
Right. So, yeah, we've never had a real presence in Santa Fe, in the city itself.
That's kind of oxymoronical, but I totally understand. Yeah, okay.
So breweries in the county, technically.
Sure, okay.
So, having a outlet, I think, is really important for our local consumers,
sure.
As well as visitors from out of state to be able to access our beer very close to maybe where they're staying in a hotel,
sure.
right down the block. So I think it's nice to give them an opportunity to kind of explore some of the not so mainstream beers that we do,
right?
Because we have quite a few here that are not available everywhere.
Right, and just to speak to the location, I feel like you've made the very Santa Fe choice. It's a very unique place. You come in here and it almost looks like it would be a house. Is that what it originally was?
Yeah, it was there's about 13 brick homes here in Santa Fe that were built in the early 1900s for the brakemen, who were the railroad workers that braked the trains.
Hence the break room.
Yep, that's why we call it the break room.
See, I didn't want to ask this beforehand. So you folks think I know these things. I don't. See, yeah. I just learned.
So it basically functioned as a B&B for those guys. That's why each of the rooms here has its own door.
Okay, so then did people stay here and all that stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, oh wow, so this was actually like living quarters.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you got history here. We've got some Santa Fe. So I mean, you guys are in the fabric. So do you feel now like you're like, is this home base now? Is this?
It's not home base,
okay,
by any means, but it certainly is a place in the city,
okay,
that people can approach our beer and try our stuff.
And don't you have another personal connection to this place, Brian?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. I forgot that. That's a good point, Bert. This used to be the Cigar Bar,
okay,
which was a private Diogenes club where you could be a member. You could come in. You could smoke cigars.
Did you have
here.
jackets?
I didn't have a smoking jacket, I know.
Damn it. That's all right.
But I was a member here back in the early 2000s.
That is super cool.
So there's some history and connection to the space as
right?
well.
And kind of like, I'm sure it got absorbed in the walls, It kind of makes it very classy, Like there was some very...
It smelled like cigar smoke for the first 5 months of us doing construction.
That's membership only cigar smoke. Let's not,
That's right.
So we're here at the break room. We're checking this out. I mean, this is one of how many locations have you guys have so far?
This is our third off-site tap room.
Okay.
So you're allowed 3 off-site tap rooms with a small brewer's license, aside from your headquarters main location. So this is our kind of third and final tap room.
This is interesting.
License.
So we're talking about state regulation when it comes to how many of these places you can have.
That's right.
That's interesting. Is that to stop a monopoly because you might have the best beer and like be everywhere and you're like McDonald's soon? I mean,
I think it's that and the fact that this state charges a lot of money for a full liquor license.
Really? Okay.
And so they don't want to step on the liquor license owners' toes by allowing people to open up multiple locations like this.
Sure. And when you're saying liquor, is liquor covering, because you guys don't serve liquor?
No, that would be a full liquor license, beer, wine, spirits.
Now we're on the same. Okay, I got you now. Okay.
We're only allowed to serve our beer, any other New Mexico made beer, and wines, ciders.
That's kind of interesting. I mean, that's probably better though, because I think you'd get a lot less foolishness in your establishments, right? Like, I mean, is that a thing? I've always wanted to ask cats that are in your guys' level, like, is that a thing because the beer, I would think people are more mellow. I mean, just from the fact that you get less alcohol per volume, right? Would that be no idea? That's not a thing?
I mean, I think there's maybe some argument to that,
sure.
to that case. I do know the insurance is less. If you don't serve spirits, yeah.
Or the next ones will be on the next podcast, part 2. We're gonna.
I know my foolishness level goes up when I've had too much whiskey.
Yeah, of course. Well,
there is a correlation there. I think.
And whiskey, I think on its own, man, it's what they call it. Like, no, it's tequila. It's the fighting one, right? Tequila's usually. I guess it depends on the person.
I never fight. None of them have that. They're all good.
So Bert, talk to me, man. So you are the brewmaster. So we've got these locations coming up. We're gonna get more into the history of this. But when did you join the team? I mean, when was this recent, or have you been here since ground up?
No, I've been here about 4 years now ish.
Wow. Okay. And then how long have you guys been? How's Santa Fe Brewery been in existence?
This is our 30th anniversary year.
Really?
1988.
I did not know that it had been open that long, man. Okay, so before that, were you brewing your beer? Or?
Well, we were brewing in Galisteo, New Mexico. That's where it started.
Okay.
On a
you're
very
on Galisteo
small,
Street. That was well done.
Humble brew house.
Okay.
And then moved the brewery to Santa Fe, not too far from where it is now, on Dinosaur Trail, and we were there from '97 till '04. And then we built the brewery we're currently in now in '05. Started brewing in '06.
So when did you guys get to the point where you are now, like where you're as big as you are? Was that from the beginning, like from the 80s, or when did you guys get to the point it's just been a slow crawl? You guys are this is now the biggest you've ever been and all that, right?
I would say within the last 3 years, 3 to 4 years is where we've really kind of scaled up, and grown quite a bit. This year in particular, we're growing at an astronomical rate.
Sure.
Which has been a challenge,
right?
To keep beer in stock for Bert and to keep all of our staff excited. Still, we don't want to burn them out.
In terms of challenges, though, I feel like that's a challenge you want to have when you have more demand.
Absolutely. The alternative is not cool.
Right. Right. And so with this issue with the beer, I mean, granted, it's not really an issue like we said, but what are you finding with the it's starting to scale up? Is it expansion, or is it just changing it up and keeping it fresh? What is it that you guys are having to consistently work on to keep this explosion going? I mean, what are you doing?
We're at capacity, so it's all about, in our case, buying new equipment to keep us ahead of the curve, finding ways to maximize the equipment we have already, so that we don't
more efficiency.
Sure. Yeah. Basically efficiency plus new equipment, because we're at our max.
Okay.
At this point.
So and with that, I mean, when you go to create like this new beer, what is this one that I'm drinking here?
It's called Sunsetter.
Sunsour. Okay, so this is a new beer. This is
it is.
So do you have to make like a big change within the factory in order to be able to produce like a new fancy thing to keep it fresh?
I mean, we have to factor in all kinds of things when we release new beers that, if they're going to blow up, then we have to consider that in advance, and we have to kind of plan for, if this beer takes off, then we need to make sure we have room for that beer to kind of grow.
Sure. In case the demand goes up, or the prices will have to go up, right? Isn't that like economics? I mean, if you you guys ran out of space and you guys would have to charge, imagine like $100.
Simple economics would dictate that if we ran out of supply, then we would just raise prices and lower demand. But unfortunately, our business doesn't really work like that. So we have to find a way to make the beer.
Sure. Okay. And then so what went into this creation here? Just to pick an example here.
So that beer was really fun. So we have we've come out with a bunch of new beers this year, and we have a really strong ideation team that that I really ideation, like the process of coming up with new ideas.
I got you. We're putting it's like Imagineering, ideation. Okay, I like that. I don't know if I've ever heard of it.
But it's not just like one person in a room drunk one night. We have a process. We get people together. We collect everyone's best ideas, and we put them together, and we try to find ways to smash things together that kind of brings the best out of everyone's ideas. And so this idea, this summer, it's our summer seasonal. It's called Sunsetter, and it's a light farmhouse ale brewed with agave and lime.
Agave? I don't think I caught that. Okay, I heard the lime part, but I didn't hear the agave. So, that is interesting.
So we use a light agave syrup, and we use lime peel in it. And so it's not designed to be a margarita beer, but we're kind of like reaching back into that. If you're not drinking beer and you're out having green chili, you might be reaching for a margarita. So we're looking for that thing that complements that.
Sure.
And then also at the same time, it's trying to tie into our was it the 25th year anniversary, right? Was the Saison 88?
Saison 88, yes, that's right.
So that beer that preceded me, that beer was the year before I got here, but by all indication just killed, and it was an awesome can design, and so we decided to take that beer from our 25th anniversary year, tweak it a little bit, and re-release, tweak the beer, tweak the liquid, and tweak the can, but kind of take that same idea and freshen it up for the 30th.
Wow. Okay. So then you guys were able to take like kind of stuff that you knew was established and works and kind of create a new hybrid out of it, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. And I've never, and again, I don't know how many people that are listening, and of course myself, I don't know how much, what goes into designing a beer, because that's essentially what you're talking about is designing a beer, right?
So for the two that preceded this, so this is our summer seasonal. The two beers that preceded this in our seasonal lineup were completely brand new, just like out of the hat. The winter one was a dark lager brewed with raspberry.
Okay.
And I had this fascination with Chambord liqueur going back like 20 years, and I've always wanted to make a beer like that. And so that was kind of my idea that I wanted to make happen. And then we also had our kind of spring seasonal it was called Twisted Root, and it had ginger and lemongrass purees.
Damn.
And so it
sounds like a health beer.
It always sounds like it was for health.
So you don't need diet here. It's just drink it. It's good for you.
There was very little hop character in that beer, and it was really just like pungent, fresh, snappy, gingery refreshment.
So I'm sure you sold the hell out of that.
We sell the hell out of everything, I guess.
That's what the answer I want to hear.
But no, I mean, really, it's about finding our customer. So it's always about like keeping our customer excited, and if there are enough of them, we'll make it again. And if there aren't, if there are 10 loud customers, that makes me happy. But we really need 1,000 customers who are going to pay money to like keep the beer around for the next year.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very Vaynerchuk idea. Do you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk at all? No, he's one of those internet mogul types, but he's grown a media empire, yada yada. But his strategy across the board, and he his media company carries like Nike and bigger brands, big corporate brands. But he calls it reverse engineering. So he goes from the end user's point of view and goes backwards. What do people drink and what do people like? And I think it's huge for you guys to actually look at the margarita side of the house, because I know when I'm eating an enchilada at like Morisco's, shout out to Morisco's, and that's where I can get some of your guys' beer. Then I would get this beer to complement an enchilada. You know what I mean?
Bingo.
And that's very New Mexican of a person, and then again capitalizing on being in Santa Fe, where it's like one of the touristy spots for New Mexico. I mean, you guys are going to essentially get something that you can't get anywhere else, really, right? I mean, how far do you guys distribute?
We are in all the states that touch New Mexico, along with Kansas and Missouri.
Wow. Okay. So this and is this something that's recent, or you guys have? I mean, is this? How long have you guys been doing that? Since like the 80s, the same?
No, we kind of gradually grew our out-of-state markets from really kind of the, I would say the mid-90s.
Yeah.
All the way up until, just a couple years ago, where we actually started to shrink and pulled out of a couple markets. Partly due to capacity constraints, and where does it make more sense to sell beer closer to home?
Right.
And then also due to the fact that we're not as relevant in some of those really far out of state markets, so it's harder to sell.
Well, that was going to lead me to my next question. Like, how do you gauge that? I mean, I'm sure that you guys get feedback from the field there. Like the bars will tell you, right? Is that who you guys typically bounce off of? Like, hey, I'm not selling this, but I'm selling the hell out of that.
Yeah, your distributor partner is a lot of how well you do in markets.
Okay.
If you have a really strong partner that believes in your brand and pushes it heavily, you're probably going to do okay.
Sure.
But most distributors have, a lot of SKUs. So to get lost in those SKUs is very easy. And, unless you're an in-state brewer or you're a local brewer,
right.
They tend to get most of the attention.
Sure. Well, and I'm guessing with the namesake also, you guys probably get a lot of your attention from New Mexico. You know what I mean? Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yep. But no, I find that to be super interesting because this is a worldwide podcast. So maybe, you're going to have people hitting you up for some, get
some beer to Korea.
Yeah. Brazil, wherever. It's cool. It'll make it, So we talked about a little bit about what goes into designing a beer. I would love to actually check out some of these beers before they go flat. We just had 5 little samples brought out to us. Okay. So we have some different beers in front of me. Talk to me here, Bert. What do I got? I got 5 beers. And this awesome New Mexico serving tray, huh? So let's start out with this guy. Ooh, the Happy Camper.
Well, actually, we're going to start with Pilsner. You're going to have to center yourself on Pilsner.
Talk to me.
It's the lightest color one.
That one? Okay.
There you go. All right. Start with Pils. We actually start and end pretty much every day on Pils here. So Pilsner is it's a brewer's beer. It's really naked. There's not a lot to it. It has 2 malts, 2 hops, and is really clean. It takes us a month to make it versus about a week and a half to 2 to make the rest of our beers.
Interesting.
So it's labor intensive and it is extremely clean. It's something you can drink all day and all night and still feel like a champ the next day. So this is the beer that most of us gravitate towards at the end of each working day.
Okay.
And to me, it's the beer that if I died perfecting Pilsner, I'd be happy.
Cheers. All right. Cheers. All right. Now, what is proper technique? Do I drink the whole thing? I don't want to shoot it, right? I mean, it's not a shooter.
No, we're tasting beer. We're not drinking.
Okay. I took a long drink.
That goes against my general ethos. I generally don't want to nerd out on tasting aspects, but we're tasting right now. So
if you were to, would you do the whole coffee thing where you? Is that a whole thing? No, I don't. I've never seen somebody actually beer taste before. Give me a quick nerd on beer tasting.
Okay, quick 5-step evaluation. Visual.
Okay.
Look at clarity and color.
Okay.
Foam quality.
Okay.
Second step, you would smell the beer and look for aromatic clues as to what it might taste like. Okay. I would say this beer tastes like kind of like lemon peel and fresh dough.
Ooh, fresh dough.
Fresh dough.
I like that. Okay, I can see that now. I see why you hired this man.
Third step, you're looking at flavor and mouthfeel. So again, that kind of in this beer, that lemon peel carries through. That doughiness carries through.
The citrus at the end, sure, and the sweetness.
And there's like an herbal character in the finish that also kind of pops up.
I like that.
You're looking at then finish. So this beer is clean and dry, hangs in there for a long time, but it's really broad and mellow. And then we look at kind of overall quality as the 5th step. Like, how well is it integrated? Is it all over the place, or is it kind of smooth and seamless from aroma all the way through finish?
I like that. So it's an experience, essentially, because you're like, I want a Pilsner experience.
Absolutely, yeah. That overall is your experience kind of factor. Like, did I like it?
Sure. And then, and you guys are, this is Pilsner, but what's the official name for it again?
Freestyle Pilsner.
Freestyle Pilsner. I don't think I've tried this one yet. So this is available at all of the. What's the best place? Because I'm feeling like people are gonna get some watery mouths listening to this, watching this. So where's the best place to point them to besides the break room? If they're not in Santa Fe, taproom off of Cutler.
Sure, yeah, Green Jeans, Albuquerque Taproom, Santa Fe Brewing. That's a great place to go. Yeah.
Okay, and then
Albuquerque.
Package. Do you have a recommendation for package? Same place.
Total Wine and More. You've got Trader Joe's. You've got a lot of the independents carry it. Freestyle Pilsner was a summer seasonal.
Got you. Okay.
And we decided to make it a year-round beer, and it's year-round as of April of this year.
Well, and then it shows that you guys are brewers at heart. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you like beer, and this is your passion because if this is the first one you pointed out, right, then this shows me that this is your baby right here. So kudos to you, man, for bringing that one up first, because that shows me, like, that's
That's the good one. I always wondered about that. I was like, I wonder if it's Happy Camper, but
This was the beer that when I flew out here for my interview, I had a couple pills with all of the staff after work that day, and I was like, done. Hopefully I get the job. This is the place for me.
So do we need to put ginger down, or do we need to do something like some coffee to switch the palate? How do you do?
Well, we roll from low intensity to high intensity. So the next one you're going to need to find is Twisted Root. It's also very light in color. Okay. That's the ginger and lemongrass beer that I was talking to you about earlier.
It's a little more. I say the word foggy, but I don't want to say foggy. Just to maybe a little bit more than the Pilsner for sure. A little darker.
So we would call that hazy, or hazy. Okay. We'd actually say that's veiled. So that beer has a slight veil. It's not quite hazy.
It's beautiful in the light though.
We don't filter that beer. We do filter the Pilsner.
Okay.
So this beer is unfiltered, and it has a ton of ginger puree, and this is kind of a decent story. So I kind of screwed up, and we had a line on lemongrass puree, which is this beautiful, it's fresh lemongrass that the vendor will grind up and then quick freeze. So they will turn it into a puree and then immediately freeze it, and it's great. It's perfect. Except we didn't get it ordered early enough this year, and our supplier ran out. So we had to hand chop a boatload of lemongrass this year for the brewing in this beer. And
wow. I bet you smelled fresh forever.
We did. We all got a ton of calluses on our hands, and we had to take shifts cutting because I screwed up. So.
Oh, so man.
This is
ginger, you're owning it, though.
Ginger puree and hand-chopped lemongrass.
It's beautiful.
Very little hop character. We're looking for like a Jamaican-style ginger beer. Super refreshing.
I could smell the ginger there. Cheers, man. Cheers. Sorry, I'm gonna, I'm just so happy to hear the story on each one of these, man. I could taste the ginger, man, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with sushi. That's my pairing recommendation.
Dude, totally, absolutely. This is sushi. We had envisioned this beer being a really good pairing for like beer cocktails.
Okay.
Like Moscow Mule.
Okay.
So again, coming back to whiskey, I'm a big whiskey drinker.
Okay.
This beer mixed with a tiny shot of whiskey and a glass of ice. Beautiful thing.
Okay.
So, when you have a really non-beer kind of flavor, like strong ginger,
okay.
It opens up doors to do different things with it.
See, this is what I was talking about with the fresh and exotic, man. I could see how you guys keep this thing moving because it's always something that's unique. I mean,
you got to think differently. Like this, we're not just trying to always make beer. We're trying to draw inspiration from other things.
So one of the gentlemen that was one of the founders of PayPal, he wrote a book, and essentially the book was called 0 to 1. The whole concept of the book was that, like with PayPal, that was something that had never really been around before, and they went from 0 to 1 instead of 1 to 1. And I feel like you guys are kind of a 0 to 1 because you guys are creating something that's not out there. You know what I mean? Because it comes from the design phase and just creativity. It doesn't come from, well, let's try that Budweiser flavor. Is that close to Budweiser? Let's try. Let's change it again until we're getting close. Do you get what I'm saying though? Like
absolutely.
It's unique on its own.
If I could get on my high horse for just half a second here. The beer establishment is it's good for us, but it's also pretty dogmatic. And if you win a medal at GABF or Great American Beer Festival, if you win a medal or you don't, it's literally based on how well you adhere to a very specific written style guideline.
So traditional beer.
Traditional. How good of a brewer are you? Yeah, absolutely. But also, how well do you get in line?
Right.
And that's really boring. And
sure.
So. And a lot of brewers, they hang their hat on that, and they feel like that's really important, and that's fine. But we're looking for a different way to express ourselves and not try to get caught up in that, but really try to stay focused on our drinkers and capture their imagination. And if we win medals or we get accolades, great. But really, if our drinkers like our beer, that's the most important thing.
That's truly the pursuit of greatness, man. See, that's why I knew you guys would be damn good, because even from your social media posts, I can tell that you guys are very. You drink beer. You know what I mean? Like you're not at the end of the day, like I got money. I don't need beer. You know, it's not like one of those things. Like, I think the Budweiser guys, like, how often are they sitting down drinking a Budweiser, right? The CEO is not drinking his own beer, because I sure as shit wouldn't drink.
No, they're drinking champagne at the end
right,
of the day.
Okay, right. You know what I'm saying though? Like, it's just not that, you know, what their whole entire career is built off of. They don't live it. You know what I mean? And I feel like you guys are the kind of people that live it. I mean, I'm drinking beer with the CEO. This is amazing, man. So, and the brewmaster. So we get through the next round of beers. We've gone from the Pilsner.
Yep.
We've gone on to, and this is you were saying, is this also a Pilsner?
That's called Twisted Root.
Twisted Root, but
there's no style.
There's no style. Okay,
it's a
so
ginger beer.
This is the 0 to 1.
Yeah,
it's a ginger beer. I love it. Okay, so okay, we got the Twisted Root out of the way, and this is all these things are in production. I can buy these in package right now. Right.
That particular beer is winding down, so that was our spring seasonal.
Get it while it's hot.
Exactly, if you can find it, because Sunsetter is quickly replacing
taking
it
over
on the shelves. Yep.
Okay, I love it. See, you heard it first right here from the horse's mouth. You know.
And actually, so the Twisted Root is in a pretty sick package. It's the can is like orange and yellow, and it looks like you're underground looking at the root growing from ground level down to where you are. So it's a pretty creative, imaginative can. It's I like it a lot.
So I just wanted to throw it out there for you guys. It was an ode to you guys, all right? We're up at Los Trampas Lakes. I don't know if you guys are, or it's not Los. Maybe it's just Trampas Lakes.
Yep.
Here locally, have you guys ever been there?
Yeah, I know the place.
You know the place?
Yep.
No, okay. So the first night at base camp, we had to break out some Happy Camper, right? And and it had to happen. So we pulled it out, and we meant to take pictures, but we had a lot of Happy Camper, so pictures did not happen. But we were thinking about you guys, and we're holding our beers high for you guys. So we thought we'd to try to put an ode to it before we came out here. I was like, I'm gonna do a video. It's gonna be out in the wilderness. I'll be like, hey guys, It was all a bad drunk idea. So I'm glad I didn't take any video. But yeah, we absolutely thought about you guys, and then we were definitely talking it up too. I was like, you guys got to check out the podcast. You ever had this beer? And so I introduced a couple people to you guys as Happy Camper. So
excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. And then hopefully they'll find more. So okay. So we've gone through the Twisted Root. We've talked about kind of the haze that was in it. So bring me to the next one. Where are we going now?
All right. So next is indeed Happy Camper.
Indeed Happy Camper. Did I get it wrong? Right here. Damn it! I thought I was gonna get it the first time. That's what I get. I don't see it in a glass enough. So it's a little darker. It's not much, but it's a tiny bit darker. I would have thought it would have been lighter I've only drank it in a can now that I think about it.
Oh, okay.
But I've
got
got
cheers.
And so tell me about Happy Camper. This is the one. It's got a yellow can. It's got a Zia, the New Mexico Zia symbol on it. And the only reason why I want to bring this up is because this is a New Mexico podcast. So explain to me, how did this come to be?
This can is iconic. I don't think there's any way to say it otherwise. So it's iconic, and at the same time, we have to give a nod to the Zia tribe, because it can't be iconic without us admitting that everyone in New Mexico who has ever used a Zia on anything has ripped off the symbol of the Zia tribe.
Amen to that.
So,
I could totally beers to that.
So you know what? On that front, we don't know what's going to happen. Ultimately, this is the symbol of their tribe, and it has also become the symbol of New Mexico.
Sure. I don't know how many millennials do not have the tattoo. I'm one of the few.
Yeah, the Zia with the cross green chilies on on your shoulder. But yeah, so it was. I think it was the right beer at the right time in the right package. It just everything was right. So I think this beer came out in 2010. It was the first beer in cans in New Mexico. It was the first IPA in cans, which is, if you don't have an IPA in can right now, you're going backwards.
Because IPA is where it's at, right?
IPA is where it's at. So Happy Camper was in the iconic yellow and red Zia can. It was IPA. It was IPA before anyone even knew what IPA was in New Mexico.
Sure.
And
I'll tell you, that's the one that started me off on IPAs, because I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And some of them are kind of rough. I'm not going to talk about some other craft breweries, but I'm going to talk about some other craft breweries. They just weren't as good as Happy Camper IPA. And you find that out real quick when you could put double blind that shit, and you'd be able to see that one beer is better than the other when it comes to IPAs, because a lot of the craft beers, I feel like they're almost trying to copy you guys. And I say this because I have a lot of friends that are IPA snobs, and it's always the Happy Camper they bring over. You know what I mean? Get a little. I'm not going to say the other brands, but they do bring over every once in a while, but we always come back to the Happy Camper. And honestly, I didn't like IPAs until I had your guys' beer. So I've consumed a lot of it purely on the Santa Fe Brew dime, or whatever you want to call it, on the sales of, you know what I mean?
We're Very happy to hear that. Thank you.
I'm sure a lot of people out there can ditto. Yeah. So what went into building the flavor of an IPA? This is something that is unique to me. Why is an IPA compared to a Pilsner compared to a hazy ginger beer?
So actually, to really answer that question, though, we're going to have to talk about Happy Camper and 7K IPA at the same time, because that was going to be the next beer we go to on your tray. It's the lighter one left on your tray. So we now have 2 IPAs out on the market, and
I can smell the pininess. What do I smell with that pininess? What is that? What am I picking up by that? That real IPA smell.
Yeah, you're literally smelling a compound called pinene.
Say it again.
Pinene. Pinene.
Okay.
It's an oil reminiscent that's present in hops, and it's also present in pine needles.
Okay.
You are literally smelling pine.
That's amazing.
But hops are way more complex than that. They don't only smell like pine. They have a ton of different aromas and flavors, and so we think of hops as a spice cabinet.
Okay.
And you wouldn't just make every dish you ever made with salt and black pepper. You would mix it up. You probably put a little black pepper in a lot of things, but you probably spice it up with cumin and coriander one night, and then the next night is thyme and oregano.
Sure. Okay. So how do you play that with the one ingredient of hops?
Well, because that's the same thing as saying, like, those are all herbs, right?
Sure.
But they smell and taste differently. So as a brewer, you have to know what your materials smell and taste like.
Interesting.
And then you build that, you treat it like a spice cabinet, and you reach in to different hop varietals based on the flavors you're going for.
Interesting. Okay, so then you guys are taking these hops, you're selecting them, and then you test them. Do you guys make like baby brews before you guys try to
absolutely.
make some?
Okay. Yeah. So let's get back to Camper then. Let's talk about what Camper is, and then we'll talk about how 7K is different and why they're both IPAs, but and they're actually the number 1 and 2 selling beers in the state of New Mexico right now, which we're pretty proud of.
Absolutely.
But they're very different beers, and they appeal to a different drinker. One is not better than the other; they're just different, and we designed them specifically that way.
Okay.
So Camper is, it's been around since 2010. It has a strong pine resin kind of, and pine and orange peel are the 2 descriptors we reach for the most. And it also has a lot of kind of toast and caramel character. It's a big-bodied beer. It's full. It's rich. You're drinking a beer, and it finishes piney and a little grippy.
Sure. And just to speak to it, what makes the alcohol content higher? Why does that happen?
We use more or less malt. So the malt provides the sugar, and sugar is converted into alcohol.
Sure, through the fermentation process.
Bingo.
Sure, okay.
So we can calculate that. We know if we add this much malt and we ferment this much of it, we're going to end up with this much alcohol.
Because Happy Camper sits at
6.6.
6.6, and that's your highest?
No.
Chicken Killer is on.
Oh yeah, we're gonna end on Chicken Killer.
Is that what I'm gonna get into? Is Chicken Killer?
That's where you're ending. Yeah.
Okay, we're not there yet. But the only reason why I ask is because I know that's one of the reasons why IPA has a draw. Is that it has a higher alcohol per volume, right? So I mean, do you guys play to that at all?
We don't. If I could make every beer at 4.5% and it would sell, I would do that.
Really?
I would prefer that people drank. I really love the English model of people just hanging out in pubs all night and talking and maintaining well.
More of a connoisseur than an abuser, if you will.
Yeah, right? I mean,
okay.
drink
Maybe I'm
better,
making some
drink
stark
less.
contrast, but sure.
But that is definitely one of the draws of IPA, and it has a certain cachet because of that.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, most IPAs are in the 6.5 to 7 ABV range.
Is there a regulation against that in the state or federally? So if I had a 50% beer, that's cool.
You could even call it IPA, and no one could argue with you.
Damn.
Your customers probably wouldn't buy it.
It's like syrup. Just drink it.
But you can call it that. But again, we're just tasting, so.
Sure, and then where did the name come from?
Camper?
Yeah, well, Happy Camper, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you right now, like I just made a prime example as to where it fit in my life as a New Mexican since I was born and raised here, right? And I'm using it in the mountains before I go on a backpacking trip. So that totally fits, and I feel like that's the mode that a lot of guys in my circles utilize it for. Like, we're going to hang out. Bro, did you get some Happy Camper?
I think that was Brian's stroke of genius. That's getting ahead of the curve right there.
I love it.
That's exactly what we created for. I mean, New Mexico, tons of outdoor opportunities everywhere you turn.
Absolutely.
You know,
like the Trampus. Like
can
the Trampus
is such better vessel than a bottle if you're going to go anywhere outdoors.
This is true. This is
And,
true.
You know, why not just go right after it and name it what you're going to do with it?
Happy
you know?
camp. Now, this wasn't something that popped up on a camping trip?
No, it was a fairly long-winded process of elimination
really?
from a long list of choices.
Let me tell you a story. It's very fast. I started a metal band back in the day. My one of the guys that was helping me with the podcast was in this metal band. We picked all these names. We had them on the door, like 20 names. We decided to pick the hardest goddamn name you could spell. So when people ask you on stage like who you are, we called ourselves Fixius. Try to spell that, right? And people, you know, we were playing for like high schools and stuff, you know, and they're like, how do you spell that? I'm like, well, you know, and I almost don't know, but it was the ship that Odysseus came back on in the Odyssey. So it sounds cool when you're nerding on it, but otherwise it's not like as easy as like happy camper. Right. So kudos. And I'm sure that process takes some marketing people, you know, some C-level management ideas, and then as well as a brewer saying, let's reverse engineer this and see what sells in New Mexico. That is genius, gentlemen. That is genius.
Well, thank you.
I'm proud of you for that. So the IPA is essentially a specific blend of hops more so than not because of the pine.
So at this point, IPA just generally means it's slightly higher in alcohol than your standard offering. It's probably in the 6.5 to 7 range.
Sure, that's what it seems like is the trend.
And it's hop forward, meaning it's focused on hops, not malt. It makes no attempt to be balanced, quote unquote. It's not trying to be a malty beer. It's trying to be all about hops.
Sure. Okay. So then that's where you get that IPA flavor. I think that people seek out, right? Like you've been explaining. So then this is a dumb question. What does IPA mean? Is that an acronym for something?
It is. It's an acronym. Yeah, most people don't know that probably, huh? IPA means India Pale Ale.
Okay, so that's the style, because I've heard of beers called that, but I didn't know if I'm like saying a brand to something that is a category of beer. You know what I mean?
It is a category, and the extremely short version is that pale ales were popularized / invented in England back in the day, and then when during the period of the colonial Raj in India, where the English had sent a bunch of troops and they needed to get beer to India to, I don't know what, keep them calm or whatever. They had to send beer from England to India in the hulls of ships in wooden barrels. And so they jacked up the alcohol and the hopping level because both are preservatives. And so that helped the beer survive the journey of the pale ale from England to India, hence India Pale Ale, hence IPA. It means higher alcohol and higher hopping levels.
Wow. That is interesting.
So
okay.
There you go.
So now I know. I mean, and the reason why I say so is because, you know, you can say acronyms and sometimes you have no idea what you're talking about. I guess I should have an example to follow that. But, you know, if I said IPA, I'm sure I could come up with all kinds of stuff with those 3 letters. You know what I mean? But to think that they're in that's actually very common sense. I guess I should know that.
All the time.
All the time. He's like, you do realize what I do for a living, right?
RCA, VCA, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. I had a guy explain to me, and I might nerd on you a little bit. I work in IT, so I had a guy explain to me that there was actually a form of CDs that had come out after CDs, but it didn't take off, and it actually could handle multi-track audio. Hang on to me here. So instead of having one single sound come out of, let's say, speakers, it was an emulation of what you would have for like 7.1 surround sound. So they would actually separate each channel of the music. So your drums could be on your right and on your left, but not on your back. Then you'd have your vocals on all and your guitars on blah, 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 blah. But it would follow CDs. And apparently the quality was 16-bit, where the CDs were 24-bit, and records, if you guys are record aficionados at all, but they are 24-bit, 192 kilohertz is what they play back at, which is why record players are considered to be this really high-end quality sound, right? Because when they cut them, they get off on that, essentially this really high-quality playback. So apparently there was something that drafted off of CDs, but it never took off commercially, whatever. But it had the ability to emulate that super crisp sound that you would essentially attribute to a record, but it just never panned out, you know? And at the same time, there was Laserdisc. Do you guys remember Laserdisc? Did you ever see those?
I don't know if I remember those.
I remember Laserdisc,
They were bigger than a record, I think, and they looked like a double-sided DVD, damn near. Yeah, and they were ridiculous, man. But I remember watching like a dyno thing on there, and it was like supposed to be high-tech, you know, but yeah. I don't know. I went off on a tangent there, but I just thought that was kind of funny how you had to geek on me a little bit. But, when it comes to beer, I think a lot of people would like to know more because you sit there and drink it, but like, oh, let me tell you about an IPA, but they probably couldn't tell you what IPA even stands for. So I kudos to you for knowing all those things, man. I guess that's why you're a brew
It's literally my job. Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day about the difference between Pilsner and IPA because as I already mentioned, I think a lot of brewers really gravitate towards Pils, clean, refreshing, and you feel like a champ the next day.
Sure. Let me speak to that.
Okay.
What makes a person not feel like a champ? If I'm drinking, and I'm just going to throw the one out there that I hate is Rolling Rock. Okay. I drank that one night, a lot of that, and there will never be a time again, Rolling Rock. I love you, but I'm sorry.
Not a champ the next day.
No, I felt like trash. So what can attribute to that besides drinking excessively? We understand, right? But
sure, yeah. We're not talking about pure quantity of ethanol. We're talking about all the other things that come with it.
Okay.
And when we say clean, when a brewer says clean, we do mean all of the other things that come with it.
Okay.
Rolling Rock is a perfect example of somehow a horrible beer made popular.
Right.
That beer is loaded with a flaw called dimethyl sulfide, DMS. We do our best to prevent that beer, that compound from showing up in our beer. And
how
Rolling
does this
Rock
get created?
It's created by an insufficient boil time.
Huh.
So if you don't boil long enough, it's present in your malt already. It's natural. It's natural. It's totally natural. It's not like
sure.
They didn't adulterate it in any way. It's there, and we boil during our boiling process. We boil long enough to make sure that there's no DMS or dimethyl sulfide left in the beer, and they intentionally. Maybe it was accidentally. Maybe they stumbled upon it a long time ago. Said, "Wow, it's probably process driven. This is the brewery we have. Maybe it's just the beer we make, and some people gravitated towards it, and they decided that was a good thing."
Sure, because I'm sure it tweaks the taste.
Oh, it's
ever so slightly, they think 10 people
I think
like
it's disgusting, but
yeah, I hate it, man. I hate to hate on you. I hate to hate on your Roller Rock, but I just can't. There's a lot of those beers like that, like Bud Light. You know what I mean? And I feel like they're going for that quantity shot, and they're not appreciating the beer. You know what I mean? And granted, the 4%, I could understand that. If you take a 30-pack of Bud Light and a 30-pack of Happy Camper. You're going to have some much drunker people on the Happy Camper, right? But we're talking about volumes here, you know what I mean? But if you want to talk about it from a connoisseur perspective, I feel like, people are drinking beer and they're tasting it. I don't buy Happy Camper because I just want to get smashed. I drink Happy Camper because it tastes super good and then I'm feeling great. It is an added benefit, of course. Who the hell doesn't drink beer for the added benefit? But for the flavor in itself, I don't like IPAs, but I like Happy Camper. It's kind of weird to say. And I do like the 7K. We haven't gotten there yet. Apologies. I didn't mean to move us forward, but
so let's do that. Let's move on to 7K.
Okay.
And hopefully you like Camper and 7K for the same reason, and hopefully you like those two IPAs for the reason that you don't like a lot of other IPAs, which is exactly the thing we're going for.
Which is the after bitter taste.
Bingo.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
That is what's always deterred me from IPAs.
Boom.
Speak to me.
You've already said it. You said it for me. So it's our opinion that people that like IPA okay, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna cut back to a conversation I was having with my non-beer drinking friend the other day who said, Pilsner interesting, but I'm not gonna spend $5 or $6 on a pint or $10 on a 6-pack because my palate isn't sophisticated enough to understand the nuance.
That's interesting. Do you think that was an excuse or you think he was being legitimate?
Oh, no, this was legit. This was a totally legit beer conversation.
I can appreciate that as long as it wasn't in jest, right?
He's like, if I'm going to drink a beer that's so clean and light, I'm just going to spend $6 on a 6-pack of Budweiser.
Okay.
But when I want a beer that has flavor and it's going to beat me over the head, I'm going to buy a 6-pack of IPA. And so IPA brings that impact to the table, to your pint glass, to your 6-pack. It kind of hits you over the head a little bit, lets you know you're drinking a beer.
Right.
Okay, that's not a bad thing, but that's kind of differentiates it from Pilsner. So if it smacks you over the head just a little bit, then it's like what kind of flavor, what quality of flavor,
Sure.
what quantity of
Sure.
flavor. And it's our opinion that people want to smell and taste. They want to be hit over the head with flavor and not that lingering bitterness after effect. They want to know they're drinking a beer that has a lot of ingredients and love and care put into it, but they don't want to be left tasting pine needles for an hour. So
that's heavy. That whole sentence, man. I want to.
So let's jump to 7K. What's the difference between camper and 7K?
Color for one. I'm gonna start there.
One,
yeah, it's a little lighter. Sure. Smell for sure.
Smell intensity and quality are different. So if camper is piney and resinous and earthy, it's like walking through a pine forest, it's like going camping. Then 7K is having a bowl of tropical fruit in front of you, slightly spiked with alcohol. So we're looking for fruity, tropical, orange peel. It's like a Mai Tai. That's a beer.
My God, I haven't even tried any yet. I'm gonna cheers to that.
Cheers.
Right much lighter on the hit, right? The Happy Camper just hits you right away. This is a mellower, but you still get that IPA right as you drink it.
Bingo. So I personally describe camper as it's kind of a creeper beer. It starts out mellow, and it really builds to a long finish that hangs in there.
Okay.
And 7K starts out really intense with a big aroma, has a nice, soft, gentle, oily mid-palate, and then finishes fast.
Absolutely.
And it makes you want to drink another one.
You can't really taste it as much as you can the Happy Camper on the back
Bingo.
end. Yeah, okay. So would you feel that
But what is there you want? It's like it's elusive.
Right. This is an IPA I want to drink. So what is this the evolution of a Happy Camper? This is the what did you call it session? Ideation? Ideation session. Is this the result of?
This is the evolution of what I think everyone on the East Coast and the West Coast is going for with their IPAs and smashed into the best of all worlds.
That's well said. It's well said, sir. Did you practice for this at all?
We just steal everyone else's ideas.
And you make them very unique, very New Mexico. That's.
I mean, there are no original ideas at this point left. Like
Hold on now. That ginger beer. Come on, that was different. Come on, we got to back up here.
I mean, Reed's Ginger Ale, like that beer, that soda is amazing.
Right.
I just tried to make an alcoholic version of that soda.
You did well, though. You did well. And the finish is absolutely there. And that's my thing with IPAs is that after that, that real powerful aftertaste. And this I think this would appeal to the alternative IPA crowd like myself, maybe. You know what I mean? Because I'm not super diehard where I'll get those ones that taste like gin almost coming down, and it's just too stout for me. And I wouldn't say Happy Camper's that, but I think that if you were going to compare the two, I feel like this is a mellower IPA for sure.
So in about 9 short months or less, that beer became the #1 selling craft beer in New Mexico.
Really?
So, we weren't wrong when we tried to develop that beer in a certain way.
That was a good ideation.
It was a good ideation. As it turns out, we are... Sorry, can we swear?
Oh, yeah, dude, you could swear as
We
much
were
as you
not
want.
full of shit. Like, we feel we're proud of it. We feel like we got it right.
Yeah. No, and I think you guys did. I think you guys killed it. And don't fucking worry about it because this is a podcast world. You can cuss as much as you want. It was really up to you if you wanted me to cuss or not. I didn't ask you that actually.
I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Oh fuck, I can't keep that word out of my mouth. So
we're over here drinking, and I figured it was going to eventually start to happen, right? So I was like, no, I don't think any of them are clean. I think the one we did clean was the VR podcast because that could be, it's a little more. You're not selling beer, so it's a little different. The crowd that consumes that could be a little less, maybe a lot of non-drinkers. But yeah, no, this is excellent. And I think what's cool about this is how you guys go through this. What kind of a 20 minutes? Okay, if you guys go through this and you were to say, you're doing these changes. I'm guessing 7K is going to hang out. I'm sure 7K is going to hang out. Happy Camper. How well has your guys's how should I put this? Out of the beers you're making now, how many of them are consistent that you make them no matter the season?
That's a great question. So actually, you know what? Perfect example. Freestyle Pilsner was our summer seasonal until this year.
Okay. Because you sold enough of it to where you're like, we need to just make this shit all year round.
Bingo. We felt like we felt like the numbers were there, and we also felt like we wanted to make it year round. We felt like we kind of have a point to prove. Like Pilsner is what people should be drinking.
Let me show you why I like this, right?
Yeah. I mean, we are super consumer driven. Like I'm not trying to shove anything down anyone's throat.
Well, and
But-
it shows
but we
because
do-
you guys have organic traffic. You're not paying somebody to get 50,000 followers on Facebook. People drink your beer and they're like, "Damn, Santa Fe Brew, yes, like."
And you know what, like, we don't carry our ego around on our shoulders at Santa Fe Brewing Company. We're just trying to make our customers happy.
Sure.
And so it's a very rare thing when we say, well, you know what, we're going to shove Pilsner down people's throats, and we hope they like it.
Sure.
We're going to take that beer year round, and we think the numbers are there, and we think the traffic is there, and we think that this is the future craft beer. So.
Wow.
So we made a conscious decision that was mostly numbers driven, but not entirely, to take Pilsner year round, and then we released Twisted Root and then Sunsetter in its place. So
Interesting.
most of the time, these beers, it's a long, arduous process to become year round. But of course, Camper and 7K are year round. Pilsner's now year round, and the next beer we're going to try, Chicken Killer, is not only year round. It's straight historical.
Okay.
I don't know. I think Brian should tell the story about Chicken Killer.
You haven't jumped on a minute, man. Talk to me. What's Chicken Killer all about?
Chicken Killer was, I think, an experimental beer when the brewery had just started in Galisteo.
Okay.
1988.
Wow.
And
So this goes back. Huh?
the family that started it, the Levis family, were experimenting with some higher alcohol beers. It was winter, and they were thinking they wanted to come out with something very strong. And so they developed this recipe, and they didn't have a name for it. So they offered a free keg, to anyone that wanted to submit a name for the beer.
Okay.
So they had, like a month where people submitted all kinds of names, and they probably had 100 or 150 names.
Wow.
That people
For
submitted.
a keg, that makes sense.
Right, full of Chicken Killer,
Right.
which is 10%.
Woo.
So yeah, a keg of Chicken Killer goes a long ways.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You can make a big party happy with a keg of Chicken Killer. So they were trying to figure out of these names which one to pick. They had gone through several meetings and votes of which one they liked and which one they didn't. And during that same kind of period, the original brewery was on a farm in Galisteo, New Mexico, and they had a chicken pen, a coop. And they had, 30 chickens in this coop. And they also, the farm had a miniature dachshund named Petey. And during this, this caucus of what the beer was going to be called, Petey broke into the chicken pen and mauled every single one of the chickens. And so they
my wife
very
would be
appropriately,
livid, for the record, my wife would be livid.
Oh yeah,
She's a big chicken fan. That would not play well.
So they appropriately called and named the beer after Petey, the Chicken Killer.
Yes. All right, Petey, that 10%, man. I don't know how many beers are actually on the market for 10%. Is there a lot? There's not a lot like that, right?
I mean, there's some malt liquors and there's some higher octane stuff that's
When you say
out
malt
there.
liquor, would I be right in saying that that's shitty beer? That's cheap beer, right?
I mean, I don't like drinking malt liquor,
Okay,
but
okay.
I'm sure it has a place for people.
Yeah, and that was my question because I feel like I'm going to get a lot of DMS. DMS?
You might get a lot of DMS.
Yeah, and because
Mostly you're just gonna get boozy.
Yeah, you're looking for a headache unless you're drinking something that's a crafty 10%. Okay, no, we're on the same page here. So this is knowledge for you guys. This is knowledge. So then we named it Chicken Killer. That is an amazing story, and then you just stuck with it, right? Because So let's finish Chicken Killer, and then I want you to tell me how we acquired Santa Fe Brew after the fact. So do you want to finish this real quick, and then we'll get back to the...
So it's the 30th anniversary of Santa Fe Brewing Company, and we are bringing this recipe full circle, and we are making our special 30th anniversary version of Chicken Killer. We're tweaking it slightly. We're aging it in whiskey barrels, and we will have this beer releasing during our 30th anniversary party.
Which is?
August 20, I think... We decided the Saturday the 23rd for the release of this beer, I think.
Yeah, that's the 25th, right? Saturday the 25th, I think, is the release of this particular.
So definitely look that up.
But we have a week-long celebration coming in, starting. Is it August 21st? Tuesday the 21st.
Tuesday, yep.
Okay. So yeah, we have a week. Well, a 6 day. We can only make it 6 days. We can't go 7. So we're going
and on
to.
the 7th day, he rested.
we didn't show up for work.
He didn't show up for work. He was a little hungover. That's 6 days straight.
So we're starting on August 21st with a Steel Pulse concert. I think Steel Pulse was I can't remember if Burning Spear or Steel Pulse was the first concert I ever saw when I was like 15. So either way, I'm pumped to see Steel Pulse at the brewery.
That's like fate, man.
Dude, it is fate. On Tuesday, August 21st, and we have a week of celebration ending that Sunday. I'm going to call it a week. If you want to argue with me about math, we can talk later. But ending Sunday, that 26th.
About it.
One of those days, we will be releasing our 30th anniversary Chicken Killer version in bottles, one time only.
In bottles.
It's going to be cool. Yeah.
So
we're going to do a lot of other stuff, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, so this is in August. So we created this beer, the Lettuce family. Lettuce, is that right? Levis. Almost apologies, Levis family. They created the Levis beer, and then you guys ate the recipe. It's the same one from the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's the same. It may have slight tweaks in it.
Had some Bert tweaks.
Some Bert little tweaks in there.
It's the least changed beer in our portfolio.
But now, is it still at that point when these guys were doing that? Was it without the DMS? I mean, are you doing something to reduce that? Like just for sake of an example, did you improve it in that manner? Is that what you did?
Sure. I mean, that's fair to say, but we haven't changed the ingredients list. The ingredients and the intention are the same.
So I'm drinking this beer. What am I looking for? What should I be filling out when I'm looking at Chicken Killer?
You're looking for a big caramel malt aroma and smooth, satiny mouthfeel.
Ooh.
And warming.
It's not quite a stout.
Booze. No, it's not stout at all. It's a barley wine.
But it has that same kind of earthiness. I don't know how to put it.
Earthy, caramel, toasty, roasty.
I get the caramel, I get the toasty,
Yep.
I get the roasty. You just keep throwing them in there, and my tongue's like, yes, check.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that one. That one's good. That'll definitely
get
you drunk.
you know you're drinking a beer at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about the beginnings of how did you become the CEO of Santa Fe Brew? So the Levis family had it first?
Yeah, they founded it in 1988.
Okay.
And
it was the year I was born. I don't know if I'm showing my age there.
Wow. All right.
Yeah,
I feel old now.
I'm 30 this year, man. So yeah.
They started in 88 and myself and three partners acquired the brewery in 96, early 96.
Okay, from those guys.
From Mike, yeah,
okay.
Who kind of started the brewery. So I bought it with three partners, one of which I went to college with and became very close and in contact with, and he knew I wanted to get into the beer business and called me up in Portland where I was working at a brewery and said,
that totally fits for you, man. I don't even know you that long, and I could totally see you hanging out in Portland or Santa Fe. That works too. Go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, no, that's where I grew up. So I was there kind of after college, figuring out what to do. I knew I wanted to be in the beer business. He said, let's go to Santa Fe. There's no breweries down there.
That's so funny to hear that be said now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's we've come a long ways in 30 years. Yeah. So I kind of at the time Portland was sort of getting saturated. It was kind of the mid 90s first, I'll call it craft kind of. The market kind of fell out where there was just a lot of beers entering the market and the consumers weren't really ready for it, I don't think.
The demand thing we talked about, probably too much, right?
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Okay. So its first kind of hiccup, so to speak, and Portland was kind of saturated. So had the opportunity to move to Santa Fe. Decided to take the opportunity, move down here. Within the first 3 months of being here, found out that the founder, Mike, kind of was burned out on the brewery. He did it more as a hobby than anything else. He was brewing 5-barrel batches on a square mash tun, square brew kettle. It was a hobby. It was a fun hobby for him. Yeah. He was burned out on it. He wanted to get out of it. And his son was a brewer and brewed for Santa Fe Brewing, and he wanted to continue on. And then the two other partners, Carlos, Dave, and myself, we bought it from the founder in 96.
Wow.
We moved the brewery to not too far from where it is now on Dinosaur Trail. Okay. And we were there from 97 to 03. And in 03, we built the brewery that we are currently in right now. Sure. Yeah. Okay. And we just, so we built the brewery in 05, started brewing beer there in 06. did a pretty significant expansion. Started that in 2015.
Okay.
Started canning on our new canning line in the fall of 16. Have just kind of been cranking since then.
So I feel like, when did you feel like you kind of were taking it, granted, taking on debt, starting a business or jumping into a business that's already there is a big step, but when did you feel like you were, like this was the thing for you? I mean, granted, 96, you're taking over the business. This is the thing for you. But when did you feel like it was really catching traction and you were starting to?
Well, in 03, the three partners wanted to get out. They were tired of making $10 an hour and working two jobs and trying to make ends meet.
Right.
We were all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And they were all kind of ready to move on, and I wasn't. I was like, no, I want to keep going with this thing. This is fun. I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so that was the point where I kind of knew I had to sign a large promissory note that I would pay the bank back all this money.
All on you.
To buy, my partners out and to buy some equipment that was needed at the time. And so I think at that point I was all in.
Sure.
It was just me. Going forward, and I had to look in the mirror every night and say, is it going to be success or not?
Right.
It's all on my shoulders. So
that's huge, man. And then you did all this while you're living in Santa Fe. I mean, you stayed here after you moved here, right? Like that's
I've been here ever since. Yep.
That's amazing, man. And then when you guys started to expand, when did that start to happen? Because 03, you're saying that you took it over.
Yep, 03, built the brewery in 05, started brewing beer there in 06. The next kind of big boost that the brewery experienced was the release of the cans. As Bert mentioned, in 2010, being the first craft beer in cans in New Mexico, I think was
is so crazy that was like that was the 0 to 1 for that. You know what I mean? Because you think it's kind of obvious, but I guess not. And that's great for you to be able to catch that. I mean, hence why you are who you are. So
that we caught the wave at the right time with canning.
That's amazing.
We were on the forefront of it, and that really, I think, established Santa Fe Brewing's brand, with the Happy Camper, the iconic Zia can, it just speaks to the native New Mexicans.
Absolutely, man. That was one of the first things I think I told you when I called you. I was like, man, I'd love to talk about it, and then that made me think about it. I was like, well, I know there's so many beers that you guys have. The beers that I did have are amazing. This place is amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and thank you guys for coming on the podcast. Do you guys have anything else for me?
Well, thank you for, hosting us. Definitely, if you're interested in beer, check out, SantaFeBrewing.com. Find us on Facebook. You can find all of our brewers and Facebook Live videos that are fairly entertaining. So definitely search for those.
And then you guys have concerts that you consistently have at your venues. I mean, they're, if not consistent, then you guys just, if you were to look up SantaFeBrewing.com, you'd be able to find these venues.
We have
the artists playing.
We have a calendar of events, and it populates all the shows at all the different venues.
Sweet. Okay.
Our biggest concert venue is the Bridge at Santa Fe Brewing.
Okay.
So we have Steel Pulse, as Bert mentioned earlier, with Tribal Seeds. They're going to play August 21st.
I love Tribal Seeds so much.
Yeah.
You guys could just let me at least high five them from afar. I would love you forever.
So that's our big show coming up, and we've got a large venue.
Isn't that show kicking off our 30th anniversary party week?
Yes, indeed, our 30th anniversary celebration.
Okay.
It's literally 6 days of different events every single night.
And this starts
August 21st.
August 21st. So you guys make sure to come out and visit all of your Santa Fe brews, ones that are local to you if you're from New Mexico. If not, and you guys are coming into town just to check out some amazing beer, I know you want to. I know your mouths are drooling now. And if not, you guys can definitely reach out to those states we talked about that there's distribution, all the ones that touch New Mexico. Because I would love to have people hitting you guys up on the internet now. Be like, can you send me some to England? England's a big beer consumer. I'm sure that there's going to be some Santa Fe
they have
presence
a
there.
lot of delicious beer already over there.
Sure.
But we'd be happy to help set them straight.
Right. Well, just like the green chili, there's only one Santa Fe brewery. So I feel like, you know what I mean? Right?
That is correct. Yep.
Right. So I feel like that's something that's to come. And you guys have shown me the true passion. I really appreciate you guys coming on here and talking about the beer and the thing that you guys are doing day in and day out. I mean, that's that is the pursuit of greatness, and that's the reason why we bring you guys on to A Perch of Birds. So thank you guys very much. Check out SantaFeBrewery.com.
Santa Fe Brewing.
Brewing.com,
Yep.
excuse me. And of course, on A Perch of Birds, we're going to release everything that these guys are doing for the next year at least. We're going to put out all their concerts, all your guys' stuff like that. We'll just reshare. Yeah, absolutely.
Right on.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Share the love all around. And of course, come out to one of their brew houses or buy some packaged beer. I want to see some pictures, guys. All right. Thank you guys very much.